Hi, I'm Doreen Barnes. With me to talk about his upcoming performance at the Brockville Arts Centre, I'm talking with international award, like multi-award winner, and just an awesome artist. I'm talking with Matt Dusk. So let's find out about his performance that he's going to be bringing here. Matt, welcome to the program. So you're coming to Brockville.
Yes, again, love it.
What is the show that you're going to be presenting?
So the name of the show is Matt Dusk. That's me, sings Sinatra.
Mm-hmm.
It's homage to one of my favorite artists, as well as probably one of the best singers of the 20th century.
Awesome. And the date?
It is on September 16th, and I believe that is a Friday.
You're
Perfect
you're
night
absolutely right.
out.
Yes, at 7:30 you will be on stage. And actually, I think you're coming from Ottawa to Brockville because I think you're performing the night before in Ottawa at the NAC. Wow.
That's correct.
That's
So
awesome.
we're traveling all over the place, and Brockville, we thought it would be a great evening for a Friday night. Get everyone out of, from the couches and go out for dinner and have some wine and celebrate the weekend. Let us bring it in with a ring-a-ding-ding.
Yay. So the Brockville Arts Centre, while you're there, transporting us back to the city, back to the 60s,
Yeah.
what songs will you be singing?
Well, I mean, if you ask anybody who's a fan of Frank Sinatra or at least a fan of his music, they can usually name about one or two songs. So, Frank recorded almost 1,200 songs. So our repertoire goes from Fly Me to the Moon to I've Got You Under My Skin. Speaking of Ottawa, another great Ottawa native wrote a song by the name of My Way.
Yes.
So these are all wonderful songs that I know that people will not only know, but will also be able to sing along, hopefully.
So, Matt, you have a fantastic voice control. I've listened to a lot of your songs and I'm just enamored with how you control your voice, especially singing Sinatra. It's just wonderful.
I was very lucky to have some great teachers in my teenage years who used to play or perform with the likes of Billie Holiday and Chet Baker. So the technical skills that I got were actually passed down through real experience, which in today's world, obviously it's much harder because the people that played with those great giants, unfortunately, are no longer with us, but myself and a few others carry the torch.
Which is wonderful. So you started off singing in a choir, eventually singing classical as well as opera, switching over to jazz. Like, whoa! How old were you when you actually switched over to jazz?
Probably when I was about 17 years old. And when I want to say jazz, I would probably prefer the term karaoke.
Oh,
That's kind of where everybody kind of finds, a mentor that they look up to. And vocally, Frank's voice was very accessible to me. I sing in the same range as him. And here's this guy on stage who's, dressed to the nines, always looking like he's having a good time. A man who was not only successful and famous, but could also be intimate, and you felt like you could connect with someone who could, wear their heart on their sleeve. So for me, it was as an easy transition from a young or mid teenager to look up to somebody who I could identify with.
is it true that you actually you were with that great jazz legend, Oscar Peterson, the late Oscar Peterson? Wow.
Yes. When I went to York University, eventually for jazz music, Oscar Peterson would come in once or twice a year,
Yes.
and he'd give us master classes. And it was literally like myself and maybe 15 other students in a room the size of maybe 400 square feet, just roughly the size of a hotel room. And he would share stories with us. And, here's a guy who's gone out, who's lived that entire world, who went through so many challenges and difficulties, and still was a man after decades, was still performing.
Yes. Well, he really cared about his music. I mean, wow. I mean, you can identify with a person like that as well because they're doing what they love, and that's really, really important. So you just mentioned that post-secondary education. What were you taking?
Originally, I was taking economics.
Wow, what a
I'm
change.
actually, yeah, I'm actually a big kind of macroeconomics nerd because growing up in a family business, we had to learn all about supply and demand,
Yes.
learn how to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a natural kind of progression because as a teenager, you're not thinking about going into music as a profession. Obviously, you love it, but things changed. And eventually, 25 years, I'm still here.
You're still here.
Singing.
Also, I think I was reading your first album that you released, you'll obviously remember it. It was not under the name of Matt Dusk, though, was it?
It was my full name, which is Matthew Aaron Dusk.
Why did you short form it?
So when I started to play in the nightclubs and in the bars when I turned around 19, the band leader says, kid, your name is great, but it's got to fit on one of these. You got to fit it on a coffee coaster. So do you have another name? And I was like, oh, Matt Dusk. Perfect. We'll go with that. like the only person that calls me by my full name is obviously my mother when she's mad at me. But everyone calls me Matt. So it was just an easy transition.
Aw, that's nice. So when was your first album released, and what was the name of it?
So my
Yes.
first record was released in 1998, and it was a live record, but it wasn't live. So figure this one out. I was watching all of these DVDs of Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, and again, as a teenager, I was just dreaming about performing on stage. I never thought I'd ever have that big opportunity. So being a little bit of a technical computer nerd, I figured out how to record music and then add in applause.
Okay, good.
They talk about that thing called The Secret, that book that came out where if you envision something,
Yes.
it'll
It
happen.
happened.
Again, I never ever did it for that reason, but I was like, well, why don't I make a live record? And I wrote all this dialogue in between all the songs, and I'd have people laugh at my jokes. And it was, there were people who were like, wow, how did you sing in front of 3,000 people at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles? I was like, wow,
It's just
I've
one of
got
those
some
things.
skills.
Yeah.
I never said I did. I said I had some skills. I didn't say what kind of skills. It was the skills to make the audience laugh at my jokes.
Good for you. So when you're on stage, do you consider yourself a singer or an entertainer?
I would say probably an entertainer or a host. My family, and I grew up in a family that always had an open door policy. There are always people traveling through town, musicians, family, friends. So when I am on stage, it's kind of like, hey, welcome to my house for a little bit.
Yes.
Let's have some fun together. And I'm kind of the captain that kind of steers the ship of where everybody goes. But, without a good crew, there is no show. And the audience is probably one of the most important things, which during the pandemic made it quite difficult to do things like live streams and, driveway concerts, because you need that camaraderie of an audience. It's one of the few times in life you can actually be in the same room where you don't have to say hello, but you have something in common.
So do you write your own songs?
I do.
You do? Okay.
Yes. But no one wants to hear them. Everyone wants to hear Fly Me to the Moon.
Well, they do when you're singing Sinatra, right? But so where do you get the inspiration to actually sit down and write?
I think it comes from experience of also imagining, just like when myself and my band is on stage, it's one of the few times where we actually have fun. The music business is not all performance. I mean, we all get into it to play our instruments, to perform, to have that interaction with others. However, though, 95% of what we do is accounting and booking hotels and flights.
Yeah.
And so we're on stage. There is this moment of almost being, you can imagine being anywhere you want to be. So the same thing comes with songwriting, is that, you can pull on life experience, which will get you so far, but also at the same time, there has to be a little bit of projection, a little bit of imagination, because obviously song lyrics have a poetry to them.
They do.
So you have to kind of blend reality with imagination.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would imagine you do it very, very creatively. So when you're on stage, you're singing Sinatra. Do you actually take on his persona?
Oh God, no. There's only one Frank. I'm not really what they would call a tribute artist, or how would I explain it? Somebody who really mimics with great accuracy these artists. I'm not very good at that. I remember early in my career, I was asked to kind of wear a fedora hat, and it just felt odd on me, even though I was singing the Sinatra tunes.
Yes.
Interesting enough, though, all artists come from some sort of someone they look up to or idolize. Like Frank Sinatra had Bing Crosby. I had Frank Sinatra, but the thing is, though, is in the beginning when I tried to imitate him, what I realized is that as I would record myself, there would be always this 1 degree of separation. And every time I would record it, now you're off 15, 20, 30% off course. The stylization of how he sings wasn't unique to Frank Sinatra. I mean, it was a type of singing. We all kind of find the rules of how to navigate that kind of music, because obviously in music, it's a language. You have to understand how to interact with other people. But at the end of the day, it's my homage to a great singer who's no longer with us, because there's very, very few people out there in the music world that really do the kind of music like I do, which is jazz crooning. Yes. We all know there's Michael Bublé, and there's Harry Connick Jr. and Jamie Cullum, but then the list gets smaller and smaller, versus when you ask somebody about pop recording, we got Justin Bieber, we got Dua Lipa, we got The Weeknd, and the list can be 500 times. So not really imitating Sinatra, but definitely channeling the classical type of music that he performed.
So in other words, you're taking Sinatra and you're making it Matt Dusk. That's what you're doing. You're taking
I have to, because I'll fail otherwise.
Yeah, no. You're making it your own, and then you should. Actually, you should. I mean, as you say, not everyone can mimic some of these great artists that are out there. So when you're coming to Brockville, standing on that stage, who is going to be behind you? Are you coming with a big band, or what is taking place?
Of course, I have. I've got a wonderful rhythm section with the horn section. The sound of the band is phenomenal. I mean, I've worked with these guys for some of them over 20 years.
Yes.
And if I haven't performed with them personally for that long, they all come from the same school of music. So there are decades, if not centuries, of experience behind me. Now, when I say centuries, don't think that's a bunch of very, very old people.
No.
There definitely is a youthful vibe for any age on our stage.
I've seen you perform. There's a lot of energy there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Matt, any parting words to our viewers?
I think it's important to mention that, the last few years with the pandemic, there's been a lot of shift in the way we entertain ourselves. And it's been a little bit of slow for some people to make that change from Netflix back to live music. But for those that are kind of on the fence, I would say take a chance. I know everyone that is watching this show has seen a live concert at least once or twice. It's one evening. grab some glasses of wine before you come to the show and just relax and be entertained and see what person to person, eye contact to eye contact entertainment can do for your soul.
Looking forward to it. As they say in the business, break a leg. I always hate saying that. I always feel so bad after, because what happens if they do?
No, that's great.
So you take care, okay? Thank you.
Thank you
All
so
the
much.
best. Bye-bye.
Bye.